Now, a second ago I was saying that these forms, the good, the true, the beautiful, wisdom, perfect triangles, perfect squares, etc., are all one. They're all wrapped up in the same ball. Right? When desire overpowers the better elements and sets off in the manner of a four-footed beast, we miss the point. We miss the point. The point is recollection. All learning, according to Plato, is recollection. Right? We simply remember that which we intuited from before and utilize that to make sense of the world around us. Right? Now, if beauty is that element of the forms that we can actually see, and the forms are all one through our intuition of beauty, right, what we've got is, excuse this, but a beautiful memory tool, right? A recollection tool. How most philosophers do this, and there are a variety of ways to get close to the perfect truth of the forms. Philosophers are supposed to be quite good about this, because when we see a particular crappy imitation of a triangle, what I do is I say, well, that's a crappy imitation of a triangle, but I reason from the particular to the universal, triangularity. When I see a particular good act, I reason from that particular good act to the universal, goodness in itself. When I see a particular example of justice, etc., right? Now, through the use of reason, we can approach the forms, right? But what Plato wants to call, the key to love is that desire, the largest part of the soul, through eros, its desire for beauty, right? And through beauty, that bloody form that we can actually see, right? Through all of this, we have the most powerful memory key, right? The recollection trick, right? To get us back to the perfect realm of the forms, right? So if we can just kind of keep it in our pants, restrain desire so that desire can, through eros, recall perfect beauty, right? It will start getting the nourishment it wants so that the other portions of the soul can get what they want. So ultimately what Plato is describing here is a relationship that helps you with your intellectual pursuits, right? You and your beloved are benefited in terms of your mind, right? Now, I know this is a cheesy movie reference, but nonetheless what he's describing is a kind of love that makes you want to be a better person, right? Ultimately, you see your reflection in your beloved, and that love relationship, right, brings out the best elements in you, right? You're in control, you're decent, you're a stand-up person for your own sake and for the sake of your beloved. And ultimately, right, it's still hot, too. Right? Now, the only problem with desire is that it tends to overpower those other parts of the soul. Right? Desire is not bad, it's just impetuous. Right? And it prevents the other parts of the soul from getting what it wants. Right? So, right, ultimately, desire is only a problem if it's a problem. Right? If it's not a problem, then, well, it's not a problem. Eh? So, the idea of a platonic love being a non-erotic form of love, well, is diametrically opposed to what Plato was arguing for here, right? With his focus on harmony, philia, agape, and eros all have to some extent, occur, right? In order to give us access to the proper nourishment of the soul, and in order to bring harmony to the soul. So, if I ever ask you, in terms of Plato's argument in the Phaedrus, right, what's beneficial about this fourth kind of madness, there are at least three answers to that question. Right? First, right, desire, through eros, into its beauty, which is an actual, sensible form. It shines through to the clearest of our senses, vision. Right? So, right? It provides the most powerful memory cue, the recollection trick, right? In order to get us as close as humanly possible to the perfect truth of the forms. That's kind of cool. Right? Platonic love, if it's done right, will retrain desire, right, to direct itself towards that which it's supposed to be best nourished by, beauty. Right? So ultimately, it brings harmony to the soul. Problem with normal erotic relationships is that we do stupid things. We're out of control. Desire takes control of the whole ball of wax. Right? But right, if platonic love is going to do what platonic love is supposed to do, reason ought to be in control, self-control ought to be a helpmate, and desire ought to be directed towards that which it's supposed to be directed towards. Right? So this kind of harmonious love relationship, right, is beneficial that way. And then thirdly, right, the problem with an erotic relationship that Socrates in his first speech described was that, well, quite frankly, love had no greater purpose than to sate a particular form of physical desire. Right? Do wolves love lambs? That's how a lover befriends a boy. Right? Love, right, by this particular erotic definition, right, has nothing to do with the beloved. It has everything to do with sating particular desires. Right? So ultimately, it's about you. It's selfish. Right? But this kind of platonic love that involves all three parts of the soul, all three kinds of love, and relates us to all three kinds of form, right, ultimately allows you to be in the only kind of beneficial love relationship that's mutually beneficial. Right? If you're in this kind of love relationship, all three parts of the soul are directed towards your beloved, and likewise, your beloved to you. Right? You share intellectual pursuits. You share moral pursuits and a moral theory. Right? And what's more, your desires are for the benefit of one another. Right? So it's the only ethical way to be in love, according to Plato. Now, food for thought. Right? I'm just going to conclude with a question. Right? Plato would be the first to admit here, right, that this form of love is really, really hard to achieve. Right? Desire is a really impetuous part of the soul. And when we succumb to physical desires, they tend to drive us all crazy. Right? There's some science to back this up. For the first couple of years we're in a relationship, what are our brains producing? Endorphins. Endorphins. We're high. Right? We're high on these endorphins. Right? So we're not in our right mind. Right? So when people attempt to fall in love, right, for the first several attempts until you get yourself trained up, right, it's going to be desire that's in control, and you're going to do stupid, foolish, wrong-headed, jealous, bitter, nasty, hurtful kinds of things. Right? So, food for thought. Right? Given what you understand about platonic love now, and given that you understand it's really difficult to achieve this kind of harmony that Plato is describing here, is it, for most people, not a better idea to do as Lysias suggests, and avoid the subject altogether, and approach the perfect truth of the forms as a philosopher would, in terms of reasoning from the particular to the universal? Right? Or do you think that it might be ethically beneficial to, with the danger and all, attempt to achieve this platonic form of love? Right? So, that's your food for thought.